Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you clicked on this, chances are you're part of a growing majority of us who are just feeling stretched way too thin. Today, we're tackling that universal feeling of overwhelm. We're going to decode modern exhaustion, really looking at the actual science behind stress, anxiety, burnout, and mental health. But most importantly, we're going to figure out actionable ways to get our balance back.
So take a quick second and just reflect on your own exhaustion. Living in today's fast-paced, always-on digital world, it is incredibly draining, right? You might wake up tired, push through your day fueled purely by caffeine and sheer willpower, collapse into bed, and then you just do it all over again. But here's the real question. At what point does everyday stress cross the line into something that needs a deeper look? Are you just stressed, or is there a bigger mental health conversation we need to be having here?
Let's get into Section 1, Identify. Defining mental health.
Okay, so let's dive into this by making sure we're all actually starting from the exact same page. Before we go throwing around clinical terms, we really need to understand what we mean when we say mental health. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of mental well-being that actually enables us to cope with life stresses, realize our abilities, work productively, and, contribute to our community. Now, notice what isn't in that definition. Mental health is definitely not just the absence of a mental disorder. Peak mental health, it's an active state. It is all about maintaining wellness, cultivating happiness, and really just managing our daily lives effectively.
Now, despite how far we've come as a society, there is still a ton of stigma and, honestly, just bad information out there. Looking at this data compiled from Medical News Today, we can easily bust some of these persistent myths. First off, mental health disorders do not discriminate at all. They can affect literally anybody, regardless of your intelligence, your income, or your social status. Second, we so often dismiss teenager struggles as just, hormonal mood changes. But the actual fact is, half of all mental health conditions begin by the age of 14. Wow. And finally, struggling with your mental health has absolutely nothing to do with weakness or some lack of willpower. It is not a choice.
Moving on to Section 2. Understand. Stress, anxiety, or burnout?
All right, so with those myths totally busted, let's untangle some of this terminology. We throw words like stress, anxiety, and burnout around in our everyday conversations all the time, right? But they actually aren't the same thing. Looking at data from the National Institute of Mental Health, the absolute crucial point here is the difference between what's external and what's internal. Stress is a response to an external cause. Think of a looming deadline at work or a big argument with a friend. Once that specific situation is handled, the stress usually goes away. Anxiety, on the other hand, is your body's internal reaction to stress. It involves this persistent feeling of dread or apprehension that just sticks around, even when there's no immediate threat right in front of you.
But, even though their origins are totally different, both stress and anxiety take a very real, very heavy physical toll on your mind and your body. Just look at the shared physical symptoms here. Whether it's stress or anxiety, you might be dealing with excessive worry, crazy muscle tension, pounding headaches, or just a profound loss of sleep. Basically, your body is physically reacting to that heavy mental load.
So, let's see how that unmanaged stress eventually snowballs into burnout. Burnout happens when ongoing unmanaged stress leaves you just completely exhausted. Take a look at these signs. We're talking constant exhaustion no matter how much you sleep, dreading responsibilities you actually used to love, feeling totally detached or emotionally numb, and maybe struggling to focus or making way more mistakes than usual. It basically happens when you've been juggling too many things for way too long and your system essentially just powers down to protect itself.
Now, it is incredibly important to contrast burnout with depression because from the outside, the symptoms can look super similar. But here's the key difference. Burnout is typically tied to specific roles or responsibilities, like your job or maybe caregiving duties. Crucially, burnout can often improve if you just take some time off to rest or reduce those demands. Depression, on the other hand, affects all areas of your life, and it doesn't magically go away just because you took a long weekend or went on a nice vacation. If taking a break just isn't helping, it really might be time to seek some professional support.
Okay, Section 3. The modern context. The social media factor.
Look, we literally cannot talk about modern mental health without talking about the digital environment we're all living in, especially when it comes to teenagers who are growing up natively in this space. Research from the Pew Research Center reveals a really fascinating level of self-awareness among today's youth. Nearly half of teenagers, 45%, actively recognize and report that they spend way too much time on social media.
They are totally aware of the overconsumption, yet the platforms are designed in ways that make it incredibly, almost impossibly difficult to just disconnect.
Now, what is really striking about this data is how these impacts are not distributed equally at all. When we break down the negative impacts of social media by gender, teen girls report disproportionately higher negative effects across the board. Check this out. 25% of girls say it hurts their mental health, compared to just 14% of boys. Half of all teen girls say it messes with their sleep, and double the amount of girls compared to boys report that social media seriously damages their confidence.
And remember, behind every single one of those statistics is a real human experience. As one teen girl in the Pew study put it, the people they see on social media, it makes them think they have to look and be like them, or they won't be liked. Man, that perfectly encapsulates the immense, crushing pressure of constant comparison that modern youth are facing every single time they open an app.
Let's shift gears. Section 4, ACT, Coping Strategies and Exercise.
So, knowing all this, how do we actually fight back? Well, this breakdown brilliantly illustrates the hard science behind why doctors are constantly nagging us to work out. Research from the Scholars Research Library outlines the exact physiological mechanisms of how exercise literally changes your brain chemistry. It's wild. Moving your body releases endorphins, which gives you that feeling of euphoria, the classic runner's high. It boosts serotonin and dopamine, which regulate your overall mood. It even stimulates BDNF, which is a protein that promotes the growth of new brain cells, while simultaneously lowering cortisol to mitigate the damaging effects of chronic stress. So exercise isn't just about looking good or staying fit. It is a profound, entirely free mental health intervention.
But hey, what if you're, right in the middle of a super stressful moment at your desk and you obviously can't just go for a quick run? This is exactly where immediate coping strategies come in. The Beyond Blue organization recommends a really specific, slow breathing exercise to help settle anxiety fast. Here's how it works. You just breathe in through your nose for 3 seconds and then breathe out for 3 seconds. That's it. This simple 6-second cycle produces a relaxed rate of about 10 breaths per minute. Practicing this just a few times a day can literally hack your nervous system and tell your brain, hey, we are safe, rapidly lowering your stress in the moment.
And that brings us to Section 5, ACT, Finding affordable help and supporting others.
Finally, let's talk about community and connection. Self-care is incredibly important, but we don't have to navigate these waters alone, right? Accessing professional resources and supporting the people around us is absolutely crucial. If you notice a friend or a loved one struggling, the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation provides these super practical steps for reaching out. First, choose a quiet, private time to talk. Speak directly from the heart with real empathy. And, this is the big one, listen without any judgment. You want to encourage them to get help, but never ever pressure them if they aren't ready yet. And having some trusted resources on hand to share, that makes the conversation actionable and incredibly supportive. And speaking of resources, there is this massive misconception out there that mental health care is always just way too expensive. But the JED Foundation highlights several amazing ways to access affordable or even completely free care. For immediate crises, you can always text or call 988. There are specific peer-to-peer hotlines out there for teens and LGBTQ youth. Definitely check out what your school or college offers, or look into community mental health centers and federally qualified health centers. A lot of these places provide therapy on a sliding scale, meaning you only pay based on what you can actually afford. The bottom line here is help is out there, and it is accessible.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot of ground today, right? From identifying what mental health really means, to understanding the huge impact of our digital world, and exploring some actual real-world strategies to cope. But look, information is only useful if we actually apply it. So I want to leave you with one vital question to carry into the rest of your day. What small boundary will you set today to protect your peace of mind? Maybe it's doing 5 minutes of that breathing exercise, putting your phone away an hour before bed, or finally reaching out to that friend. Whatever it is, take that step. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to take care of yourself out there.